Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Monsieur Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz, Sa Majesté Felipe VI, roi d'Espagne, Madame la Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Madame Dlamini Zuma, Son Excellence Monsieur Mahmoud Abbas, Président d'État Palestine, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et du gouvernement, Son Excellence Monsieur Sam Kutesa, Président de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est un grand honneur pour moi d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui. L'année qui commence sera cruciale du point de vue de l'action mondiale qui doit être menée pour que notre avenir à tous soit assuré. Nous arrivons à l'échéance fixée pour les objectifs du millénaire pour le développement des OMD qui ont suscité tant de progrès sur ce continent. Nous allons aussi adopter un nouveau programme de développement pour l'après 2015 durable, les ODD, qui tracera la voie pour la prochaine génération d'activités de développement. J'espère que les pays d'Afrique seront représentés au plus haut niveau lorsque ce programme sera adopté à New York en septembre. Le mouvement s'accélère vers l'adoption à Paris en décembre d'un véritable accord de portée universelle sur les changements climatiques. C'est pour le continent africain que les enjeux de ces négociations sont les plus grands. Et c'est en juillet, ici à Addis Ababa, où se tiendra la très importante conférence sur le financement du développement, que nous commencerons à poser les bases indispensables au succès de toutes ces initiatives. Sans ressources, les engagements que nous prenons pour promouvoir le développement durable ne seront que des mots. Distinguished heads of state and government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, women must be at the center and front of all our life. I applaud your focus at this summit, women's empowerment and development towards Africa's Agenda 2063. Africa is a home to parliament and cabinet with the world's highest percentage of women members. But we have much more work to do to unleash the tremendous potential of Africa's women and girls. They need better access to secondary education, decent work, and economic opportunities. They need more help to combat maternal mortality and poverty and genital mutilation. They need more protection from the scourge of violence at the hands of men and boys. Gender equality and the empowerment of women are at the heart of the AU's Agenda 2063, which I hope you will formally adopt at this summit meeting. But women and girls cannot wait. Neither can Africa and the wider world. While I appreciate and support Agenda 2063, I would strongly call and urge all of you, when it comes to women's rights, to make a deep and lasting difference to the lives of African women and girls by 2020. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, last month I traveled to the Ebola-affected countries of Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Mali. I thank African governments and the African people for your support and solidarity and generous contributions. We are seeing clear signs of progress. I urge the international community to commit more resources at this critical time. This outbreak shows the risk that fragile health systems pose for our interconnected world. Affordable, quality health care must be a central feature of Africa's development agenda. The remarkable success of polio eradication and efforts to combat AIDS across the continent show what we can achieve by acting together. Mesdames et Messieurs, Excellences, au cours de l'année qui vient de s'achever, nous avons progressé dans notre action commune en faveur de la paix et de la sécurité. La mission conjointe de haut niveau que nous avons menée avec la communauté économique des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, la CEDEAO, a aidé à ouvrir la voie au dialogue et à un accord au Burkina Faso. En Somalie, les efforts que nous déployons ensemble pour établir une paix durable donnent des résultats. Nos deux organisations, l'Union africaine et les Nations unies, ainsi que l'IGAD, ont travaillé en partenariat pour appuyer les processus politiques. Nous devons poursuivre cette action afin d'aider à consolider les acquis de maintenir la dynamique en 2015. Je salue le courage et le dévouement dont font preuve les membres de l'AMISOM dans leur combat contre les Shabab. En République centrafricaine, il demeure crucial que nous collaborions pour protéger les civils et combattre l'impunité. Au Soudan, l'ONU et l'Union africaine poursuivent leur partenariat. Je m'inquiète de la poursuite du conflit au Darfour et ailleurs et espère que le processus de dialogue national pourra être renforcé. En République démocratique du Congo et dans la région des Grands Lacs, nous devons mener une action décisive, notamment neutraliser les forces démocratiques de libération du Rwanda, les FDLR, pour que la paix et la stabilité puissent être rétablies. Les signataires de l'accord de cadre pour la paix, la sécurité et la coopération doivent tenir tous les engagements qu'ils ont pris. La situation qui règne en Libye déstabilise la région. Le groupe de contact international et l'envoyé spécial de l'Union africaine, de même que mon représentant spécial, présentent les partis de mettre fin aux effusions de sang et d'entamer un dialogue politique. Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, we must also redouble our joint efforts to secure peace and stability in South Sudan. I welcome the recent agreement between President Salva Kiir and Dr. Machar and urge South Sudan's leaders to reach an immediate and inclusive power-sharing agreement with a transitional government. They must make sure that the agreement is implemented in order to end this man-made tragedy. In Nigeria and beyond, we are all appalled by the brutality of Boko Haram, which poses a clear danger to national, regional, and international peace and security. This group continues to kill Christians and Muslims, kidnap women and children, and destroy churches and mosques. We will never forget the girls and boys kidnapped from Chibok last April, and I will never stop calling for their immediate and unconditional release. The humanitarian consequences are enormous, with up to 1 million people forced from their homes. I welcome your decision to focus specifically on this serious threat in the Peace and Security Council of African Union. I'm encouraged by progress towards the African Standby Force and the African capacity for crisis response. I urge you to make these mechanisms operational. The United Nations is reviewing its peace mission operations, including its peacekeeping missions and special political missions. Your contribution will be invaluable. African troops are a backbone of our peacekeeping capacity, and we rely heavily on our peacekeeping capacity on the full cooperation of national governments that host UN peacekeeping operations. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, terrorism knows no boundaries and affects African countries in the Horn, the Sahel, and elsewhere. No grievances or cause justifies terror. At the same time, let us remember that counter-terror efforts that fail to respect human rights can make the problem worse. There have been positive developments this year in many African countries on democracy, governance, and human rights. I welcome the affirmation of the rights of LGBT individuals by the AU's Human Rights Commission and the Cotonou Declaration on the abolition of the death penalty in Africa. The AU has a long record of supporting democratic transitions. I hope the elections that take place in African countries this year will be as peaceful and successful as Tunisia, Botswana, Malawi, and others were in 2014. I congratulate the people and government of Zambia on their successful presidential election last week. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, people around the world have expressed their concern about leaders who refuse to leave office when their terms end. I share those concerns. Undemocratic constitutional changes and legal loopholes should never be used to cling to power. I urge all leaders in Africa and around the world to listen to your people. Modern leaders cannot afford to ignore the wishes and aspirations of those they represent. I also call on AU member states to stand up for accountability, which is critical to end impunity and for post-conflict reconciliation. I welcome the AU Commission of Inquiry report on South Sudan and the final report of the Commission of Inquiry for the Central African Republic. Distinguished heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. African membership of our organization has gone from 4 member states to 54 member states now. African countries have been the backbone and the integral part and leading part of the United Nations since the day they achieved independence. We have been with you since our birth. Now, many African countries are taking dramatic steps toward realizing their massive cultural, human, and economic potential. The United Nations, and I personally as the Secretary General of the United Nations, will continue to stand with Africa as your partner and strongest supporter. In this critical year, we need Africa to help guide the way to a world of sustainability and dignity for all the people, where nobody will be left behind. Let us work together to make this world better, and I count on your leadership and strong commitment. Thank you very much.